Hey, 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 welcome back to the Women of Power show with me, Lovelda Vincenzi. This is the show where we explore the essence of female power, the tools, techniques, strategies that make women powerful. So what I do is a deep dive exploration with many powerful women and men to understand how us as women can show up much more powerfully in the world. My guest today is, hold up, let me get this right. Named 40 under 40 business innovators by the Scottish Business News in 2016. Also a marketing strategist and co-founder of Decuri. An engineer turned marketer. Yes, y'all, you heard me right. Please welcome Yekemi Otaru. Hello, Yekemi. Hello, welcome. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So good to be here.
Girl, hold up. I gotta change my setup today because you did engineering. Let me get this right. And then you went from engineering to marketing.
Correct.
Help?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. So you're right. I started life as an engineer. I have a chemical engineering degree and a petroleum engineering degree. And I started in the oil and gas industry as a petroleum engineer. And during that time, it was interesting because I was really trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And while I was good at engineering, I just found that there was a bit more there. I was interested in, why we sell to customers what we sell, the opportunities for new technology, competitor research, that kind of thing. So I wasn't a typical engineer. I was also quite extroverted, so quite annoying for the other engineers I would expect. So yeah, through kind of 6-7 years in engineering, I was fortunate to have managers who gave me the opportunity to, do more commercial things like get involved in sales, get involved in marketing, get involved in customer-facing roles. And I think that was really the birth of my passion around marketing and really understanding what it is that we're offering customers in the marketplace. So yeah, I've been in marketing now for about 10 years. And yeah, I'm a different kind of marketer, I suppose, and I love it. I really love having that technical knowledge so I can really help technical founders in particular and SMEs that are looking to grow but just don't have that expertise around marketing. So I understand what they're trying to achieve with their product, and I have the marketing expertise. So that's been something that I've been really honored to have that role in my business community.
So why did you pick engineering, right? Because it feels to me like engineering and marketing are almost completely different ends of the spectrum. And I'm sure there'll be others watching and listening going, well, that is quite a career transition. Were you always quite analytical? Was it something you were drawn to initially?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think where I'm from, which is Nigeria, if you didn't study engineering or, become a doctor, then, it did feel in, the generation of my parents that the opportunities for you in terms of career were very, very limited. So it was really about, right, which engineering can you study, which is the least masculine engineering that can give you, a bright future and set you up. So that was kind of how I started in engineering. I mean, to be fair, I was good at math. I excelled at math. I excelled at chemistry. So it made sense. It did make sense. And so going into chemical engineering, I hadn't actually met a chemical engineer before. So I kind of studied it, not really sure where it was going to lead me. And after studying it and doing a couple of roles in engineering, I found that I suppose I'm one of those strange people. I'm analytical, very much so, but I did have this creative side, which started coming out far more strongly over time. I was quite creative, always looking for new ways to do things. I was interested in design. I was a good communicator. I'd always written, so I'm a published author, and I wrote poetry a lot as a child, which were all, I suppose, more creative type tendencies, if you like. So for people that knew me quite well, they weren't surprised that I'd moved to a more, I suppose, creative role in the business world. But yeah, that transition was quite hard because engineers in general don't go to marketing, if I can say that. They don't go to marketing. But I was fortunate to be in a company that, I had an engineering role, and I went to my manager and said, I would like an opportunity in marketing. And I don't think I would have gotten that opportunity anywhere else. You know, it was quite a difficult transition to make. But I had studied an MBA and I had done a couple of marketing modules, and I felt that that was an area that I wanted to kind of go down. I wanted to go down that road. So I was quite fortunate to be working in a company that gave me the chance, without marketing experience per se. I moved from being a senior engineer, with 10 people reporting to me, to suddenly being in the marketing team for the headquarters. So that was an interesting transition for me. And that was back in 2011.
So, girl, you give me more questions than answers. I've got like 5 questions just popped into my head straight away right there. What I'm hearing that I think is awesome is there was a passion there that you've had for years, and you followed that and happened to have an incredible relationship with your manager in a company that was very open to supporting you and being able to transition into something and express yourself in a different area. Before I dive into that a little bit more in terms of how engineering may have supported you with marketing, I kind of want to learn a little bit more about how you found it working in engineering, because it's quite even though you went to pick a very feminine part of engineering, let's face it, it's still a very male-dominated sector.
Absolutely. I mean, in my class, I can't remember exactly, but maybe we were like a dozen girls, which was quite a lot in a class of, I don't know, 70 or something like that. Other engineering discipline had two or three girls. So I had a bit of a kind of a double whammy there, where I was, someone who had studied a male-dominated subject, and then I went into the oil and gas industry, which is also a male-dominated industry. So I'm not someone who shies away from, being the only one in the room who's got a certain set of skills or expertise. I'm quite used to that, actually. And I think one of the challenges I had in engineering was, not really having enough role models. So when I looked around at, who am I going to be when I grow up? Like, show me someone who is doing some amazing stuff, who looks like me. I couldn't see anyone like that around. And, at that time I was maybe 26, 27. I just struggled. I couldn't see that. And I think it was gradually through that process I started finding my way to something that I could be passionate about, and I'll never know if, in a different setting, if I'd grown up in a different setting, if engineering would have been the subject that I would have studied. My daughter, for instance, is very artistic. She's she paints, she sings, she dances, she's in an acting academy. And sometimes I wonder, maybe that's what I would have been if I was in an environment that nurtured that, where the opportunities for that sort of thing, were encouraged. But anyway, I'll never know. So my daughter is going to carry the torch for that one.
You can live vicariously through her, but you do touch on a really important point there about the network and about representation, being able to see somebody who looks like you in those fields. And I guess somebody's kind of got to be the trailblazer for it. It's a bit sad it's not you, but at the same time, I'm so excited that you have been able to follow your passion. Last question around the engineering side of things. Did you notice, because you've gone from engineering, which is very male-dominated, to marketing, which tends to have a lot more women in it, believe it or not, rather than the male-dominated sectors. Was there anything, like, with that contrast, can you say there was anything that you learned from being in such a male-dominated industry that's really supported you in developing and growing your business?
Yeah. It's interesting, Lovelda, because yes, engineering was very much male-dominated. Your colleagues are male, the clients you're dealing with are male. In marketing, you're right. I mean, most marketers, if you go into organizations and you look for the CMO or the marketing director, it's usually a woman. I mean, not all the time, but usually is, similar with roles like HR as well. But actually, what I'm finding in my industry, even though a lot of the marketers are women, our clients tend to be men anyway. So, something like 70 to 80% we work with are men. And maybe it's because we still work with quite a lot of, technical companies that have a technical basis. So, IT, software, engineering, manufacturing. So we're still, I guess, working with a male-dominated industry. And so what I've taken from being in an engineering role in the past is that I'm very comfortable being the only woman in the room, or speaking to middle-aged, white men and pitching to them and just being the only, woman in the room or the only person of color. I'm actually really comfortable in that sort of environment. And I think that's a benefit from coming from the industry that I've come from, is that, yeah, I'm comfortable in those kind of scenarios.
It really shines a spotlight on how important it is for us to get into those environments in which we feel very uncomfortable. I'm not one to say, every place has got to be completely represented or there's anything wrong with, I'm saying that. I think there's something wrong with there not being more women in engineering, let me just be straight with you. But at the same time, I think there's a lot we can learn from being in those spaces that are predominantly people who don't look like us. Which brings me really nicely onto my next question, which is, how have you found that being an engineer has supported you in marketing? Because it's a really different space to come from. Do you market like other marketers, or do you find that because you've got that engineering analytical background that you do things differently?
Yeah. So, our business is called Otaru, and we're in Scotland. And one of the key things that we always say is that we're not a marketing agency. We are a sales and marketing consultancy, and, we will talk to you about the challenges you have in your business and really try to uncover what is going on. So we don't have a one-size-fits-all type solution. We do what we call the MRI, right? And that really comes from, an analytical place where we use data-driven tools to really understand what's going on in your business, what the gaps are, and we actually have data that we can then sit around the table and have a different kind of conversation with you and say, this is what you want to achieve in the next 12 to 24 months in your business. However, these are the gaps that you need to close. And those gaps are always different for different companies. So that's why we don't go for a one-size-fits-all. So that's where I would say that we're quite different from the typical marketer. The other area is that we are able to bring that kind of alignment between sales and marketing. So you have obviously marketing, which tends to be a mix of digital marketing and traditional marketing practices. But we also very much wear the sales hat, and they are different disciplines, even though they're connected. And from a sales perspective, we're able to make sure that that marketing is actually supported by sales. So if you're doing a lot of marketing, but the sales process, sales strategy is not, in place, then it's a lot of hard work, which doesn't come to anything. No one's actually actively closing those leads and nurturing those opportunities, negotiating where it needs to be negotiated, and so on. So where we are really different from a typical, say, marketer is that we have a strong sales focus as well. And so it's a well-rounded view. We have a good understanding of business as a whole. So it's not siloed where we're only talking about the marketing and we're not asking, difficult questions like, do you have the resources to actually deliver a new business? If you do get new business, do you need to be hiring? What skills do the new hires need to have? That sort of thing. So we have, I would say, a different sort of conversation to a typical sort of marketing agency.
So not just the visuals and the marketing channels and all of those sorts of things, but it sounds like that engineering background has really got you looking at the full system and the full process end to end to make sure that when the marketing is executed and delivers, the business can actually handle the end results of that, and you've got the appropriate people in the right place. And I love that you engage with the sales team as well. I used to work in sales, and sales and marketing have a love-hate relationship. We love each other because we need each other, but we hate each other because we're pulling in different directions. So getting both teams on the same page is really huge. And you spoke a lot about the data and insights that you get. And of course, at the moment, things have changed a lot since 2020 with the pandemic. And yes, we're starting to come out of that. But I'm kind of interested because we've got a very business-orientated group of people who engage with the show. I'm going to be cheeky. I'm going to ask you, do you see any emerging trends that we should be aware of in order to better serve our customers?
Oh, that's an amazing question. I mean, there's so many things happening right now, and I think the challenge is understanding what is, a fad and is happening as a result of, chaos and panic and, tactical moves. But I think overall, what is clear is that, the combination of the pandemic, Black Lives Matters type movements, the political upheavals that we've had in the last, I would say maybe 18 months, maybe more than that, has meant that, customers and prospects are looking for far more from a company that they deal with. It's not enough actually to have even a good product now. Your customers want to see that you're getting involved in important conversations. It's getting more and more difficult for businesses and business owners to just stand at the sidelines and not comment and get involved in those things that really matter to their consumers or customers. So I'll say that's one thing. In terms of building a brand and communicating, if you are focusing on just saying, oh, we've got a great product, we've got a great service, come and buy from us, that's not enough anymore, right? There was a time where that could have been enough, but the consumers needing far more than that from us right now. They need us to really get involved in those conversations. So what you find is that over the last, well, it's happening now, but in the next sort of 12 to 18 months, I expect to see more companies getting involved in more kind of community type projects. I expect them to become bolder around what it is that they support. And you see companies that normally wouldn't comment on, politics and so on, start to actually, be clear about their stance. I think sitting on the fence is becoming harder and harder for businesses. From the marketing side, it is really interesting because, let's take Clubhouse, for instance, which I know you're on, Lovelda. I mean, that's something that wasn't around. Well, I didn't know about it until around Christmas time, right? So if you're a marketing manager or you're in sales or you're a business owner and you had already put together your marketing strategy or your social media strategy, in the middle of last year or even in December or November, maybe you didn't know about Clubhouse, you haven't included it, right? So that's a really big gap because there's a really big opportunity there. So I think going forward, we're going to be seeing disruptive opportunities, like disruptive platforms like Clubhouse and other pieces of technology coming onto the marketplace. So businesses need to be vigilant. And I will actually go as far as saying they need to deliberately carve out time to watch the market, see what's coming up, see feedback, and they have to be willing to try new things. And it's okay if they try it and it doesn't work. They have to be open to that kind of experimentation and failure type cycle and try things. I think companies that just stick to what they know are going to be left behind.
Oh, it's a time of change, folks. You heard it here first. It is a time of change. And it's important that firstly, we have something we're standing for. I love that, actually. I love that customers are becoming more attuned to and more interested in the values of a company. Because I remember reading values when I'd apply for jobs, and I don't know that there were this thing that marketing would, or I don't know, HR would want to ensure that all of us were really getting, but I don't know that they meant as much as they do now. It's like our customers are now wanting to see living out those values in a way they hadn't done before. So y'all heard it here first. I got the trends for you. So this show is the Women of Power show. So I would be amiss not to ask a powerful woman who is, did we mention she's also a fashion designer? So she's a fashion designer and engineer, qualified engineer, like proper, like did all the degrees and stuff, and a marketer, proper qualified at that, business owner, author, etc. So a woman with a breadth of talents. I would be amiss not to ask you what you think the essence of a woman's power is.
Oh, wow. Women are we're just amazing beings, aren't we? I find that, women have this amazing power to be intuitive. They can be tasking. They see opportunities where I think, other people won't see those opportunities. And that, I think that's how we've been made, right? So I think for women, the combination of our empathy, our natural nurturing type inclination, and that's not necessarily that you need to be a mother. I think in general, women, we have this thing, we nurture relationships, we nurture friendships, and just the way that we empathize with people mean that we're well suited for leadership roles, and we're really powerful in those roles. I think some of that has been seen in the last year with the coronavirus and like what's happened in New Zealand, for instance, right? and what I think is it Jacinta and what she's done over there, and just the countries that have really thrived around the crisis, like put their arms around the crisis and done well. So I think we're well suited for leadership. We're well suited for entrepreneurship because that's all about creativity. That's all about wearing many different hats at the same time. Anyone who's listening to this and is a business owner or entrepreneur will know that you're juggling so many things. Especially at the start of your business. You are the salesperson, you are the marketing person, you are the product developer. You're picking up the phone and calling whoever you need to call. You're moving chairs around if that's what you need to do. And because as women, we're good at juggling everything. I feel like that's really a source of power. And even if you're a working mother or you're married and obviously you're taking care of a home, for so many of us, that doesn't stop us from taking on a career and doing really, really well, right? So I would say the essence of power for women is that nurturing and empathy tendency means that we're well suited to lead people and to really help people achieve what they want to achieve in whatever it is that they're doing.
You heard it, folks. You heard it. Lean into it. Lean into that multitasking, nurturing ability that we have. Here's a mean question, though, because I ask everybody it, but I'm going to ask you again, too. So if we were to take absolutely everything that you've done so far in your life and business, and if I were to ask you to boil it down just to its constituent parts, like just 3 core things that you would say have been absolutely fundamental to the success you've had in life and business, only 3, what would those 3 things be? Should we start with the first one?
Oh, wow. It is a mean question, I have to say. I agree. I would say for me, the first thing is probably that I am extremely persistent, right? So I don't give up easily. And I think that that's helped me throughout my career. It's helped me as a business owner. And I can think of so many roadblocks, where I'm trying to do something. It could be even just in my job when I was in the corporate world. And people say, oh, no, we can't do that. It didn't work. Or we don't do it that way. We do it a different way. Or no one knows about it here. And I always look out of my area of expertise for answers. And that's how actually my journey out of engineering started. I started finding solutions elsewhere in the commercial team. And I was noticing that HR seemed to have solved this problem. So why are we trying to, reinvent the wheel? So I'm persistent and resourceful in the sense of I don't give up. And so, just that is a little bit of a superpower because long after people have given up, I'm still going. And it just means that, so I arrive, right? And there's no one there. So I win, that kind of thing. The second thing I would say is I've just been really open to discovering myself. I mean, I think of myself in my 20s and just being really, I suppose, lost and confused about why I had the sort of thoughts I had and why I saw things differently, and just being quite confused and not really being able to explore the opportunities that I wanted to explore. And so I would say I've been committed to that journey. I've been committed to finding myself. And that's really what most of my life has been about is, kind of waking up and finding myself in a certain situation and trying to work my way out of it. And through that journey, I've had different opportunities, and had different experiences, not all good. But, I remember not too long ago, probably 2 weeks ago, driving home and thinking to myself, I actually have no regrets. I mean, some bad stuff has happened, some stuff that I wish didn't happen, but I actually have no regrets because everything has kind of worked out to make me the person I am today. And so I think that commitment to the journey and not looking for quick fixes and just being committed to living the best life I can is probably the second thing that I would say. For me, the third thing is probably something I don't really know if I had much to do with, to be honest. Apart from, obviously giving birth with my children. So I got married quite early, well, early-ish, and started having children really at the start of my career, at the very start. So my first day on my first job, I was already 7 weeks pregnant. And for me, that meant that I went through most of my career feeling like I had to catch up with people who had waited, and I did feel that kind of pressure, like I was gonna I was going to miss out because I'd started with this, other responsibility. But, I'm really grateful for my children. I have two, and they've grown up to be the 12, well, 15 and 12. And they've grown up to be just such beautiful human beings that, they inspire me every day. And I'm just delighted that they're in my life. And I think, the richness that they bring makes everything else that I do, the persistence and the commitment to discovering who I really am. It makes me really happy because they see that. They're seeing that journey. They see how hard I work. And I know that they're going to grow up to be, determined, loving, passionate people because I've had that opportunity to role model that, during their lifetime. Does that make sense?
My goodness, there's a lot in there to unpack. Whether you have children or not, like as you were speaking, I'm reminded of how important it is for us to show up because we just never know who's listening and who we're inspiring. So I think sometimes, especially, and I suppose you might get this from a marketing perspective as well, especially when you're putting a lot of stuff out as a business owner and you're showing up and you're giving value and you're sharing expertise and crickets. You're like, hello, is anybody out there? But that reminder that you just never know who's listening. So and who's watching, whether that's your own children or whether that's just somebody whose heart you touch through a post that you put out. I think it's just a really beautiful reminder of how important it is to show up and that by doing so, others are watching and you're having an impact, period.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely right. And some of the best days I have is when, I put out a post or I do something, I'm not really even paying attention and I get a message from someone that says, I was actually about to give up on that idea and something we said, something we wrote, change my mind, and they're thankful. So you're absolutely right, Lovelda. I think really continuing to show up, not just for ourselves, but for the people that need it, people that are watching. I think especially in the past year, what we've gone through, I think, that need to keep showing up is greater than it's ever been.
Completely agree. You know what? We done made it to the end of the show. I'm so sad. But I don't want it to end here because there'll be people watching and listening who are now just wrapped up in the success that you've had and have been whipped into action and thinking, I need a little bit more of a taste of this. So how do people get in touch with you, Yekemi?
Yeah, so I hang out on social media as a true marketing girl. So you can obviously look for me on Instagram. I'm Yekemi Otaru. You can catch me on Clubhouse at Yekemi Otaru as well. I'm on LinkedIn as well. So because I'm the only Yekemi Otaru in the world, you can't really miss me. And my business is called Dokaru, Doqaru. And if you Google us, you'll find all our information, including our website. Thank you.
Woohoo! And all of that information is also in our show notes. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on the podcast, you'll be able to see it in there. Or you can go and find the podcast and by the same name and the YouTube channel to be able to find more information. You've shared so much and we've touched on so many different topics. We've touched on, moving from one career to the next, the masculine heavy industries versus female heavy industries, showing up, a whole raft of things. So if there was literally just one thing that you could leave our listeners and watchers with today, just one thing, what would that one thing be?
I think that one thing would be my belief that everybody has something inside them that they are made to give to the world, that only you can give to the world. And sadly, most people go through their life not knowing what that thing is. And I would just encourage you as you're listening to this to believe that there is something in you that you need to give birth to because you're the only person that can do it, right? And so don't give up even when it looks bleak and when things maybe don't go your way. There is something inside you that the world is waiting to receive because only you can bring it to the world. I think that is one thing that I always remind myself and I say to my children and anyone I'm mentoring is not to give up and to keep going.
Do not give up and keep going, because there is something that literally only you can bring to the world. That has brought us to the end of this episode of the Women of Power show. It's been wonderful having you here. And the best thing that you can do is go out there and keep showing up powerfully as the woman that you are. Until next time, thanks very much for watching. Ciao.